Going inside the issues of our community, this is Local 12 Newsmakers.
Good morning and welcome to Local 12 Newsmakers. The symbol, if not the substance, of democratic society is efficient, transparent elections. That's why the disputed Florida vote count, with its hanging, dimpled, pregnant chads in the year 2000, posed such a threat and created such a challenge. The response was the passage in October 2002 of the Help America Vote Act, or HAVA. On election night, a couple of weeks ago, I'm usually at the Board of Elections down in Hamilton County. I can't imagine being anywhere else on election night, actually. On election night 2 weeks ago, as we watched the results come in from the 2nd Congressional District, my mind turned again to the question of when the system we are now using is going to change. To answer that question and others, I am joined by the directors of the two local boards of election. Danny Baer is the director of the Claremont County Board of Elections, and John Williams is the director of the Hamilton County Board of Elections. Welcome to Newsmakers. John, welcome back.
Good morning, Dan.
You know, the other night with the 2nd Congressional vote coming in,
Yes.
it was all being reported through the Hamilton, all the different counties were reporting through Hamilton County, and by 10 o'clock we had everybody but half of Claremont. You had 191 precincts, and I think you had counted 100, and there was another 91 out. And it seemed to take longer. And people at the Hamilton County Board were saying, oh, that's the optical scan system that's out there, and that's where we're all going. That's where we're heading. First off, did you have a problem last Tuesday night with the optical scan ballots? Was it a problem?
Actually, what happened was due to the good old Cincinnati humidity in August, which we typically don't have elections in Claremont County, and all the ballots obviously being at the polling locations throughout the whole day, 13-hour day, and many of those polling locations do not have air conditioning. Anyone that's familiar with paper ballots understands that that could impact the pulp, the paper, if you will. That does slow down the process on election night, or did slow down the process when you run those 30,000 ballots through a high-speed scanner. It was really nothing more than being slower than normal. As far as any problems, no, it was a slowdown.
It was a slowdown.
Yes.
John, and you are still, Hamilton County is still using the punch card ballots. Do you pick up this humidity too? I mean, it's a paper ballot too, in effect. Do you ever have problems with that?
Absolutely. If you recall back in November of '04, the big general we had, the presidential, rained quite a bit that day. Torrential downpour, actually.
Yeah.
We had some of the ballots got damp, and it wasn't very noticeable because of we had tremendous volume of ballots we were running through, so everything was slow that night. But yes, we did have problems with some damp ballots going through our punch card readers. Punch card readers are extraordinarily fast, but they were slowed because of the humidity that night. And Danny's right. Any paper ballot will absorb humidity or water, and it will slow things down.
John, my understanding is Hamilton County still hasn't made or announced a final decision on what system we're going to next year. Am I correct?
You're correct.
Do you have any sense of where that might end up?
Yes, we are very, very close at this point. I was on here some time ago.
I know.
And had my electronic machine and was very proud of that, and I'm still very proud of that system. That was by Hart InterCivic. Things changed dramatically when the paper trail was introduced. That's the voter verifiable paper audit trail where the paper record is necessary. Our board looked at that and thinks that that has changed things perhaps for the primary voting system, and so like our friends in Claremont County, we are looking strongly at paper at this point. We believe that that is a better system for the long run until things perhaps clarify with the electronic system as a primary.
Mm-hmm.
We're both going to have something that disabled voters can use. So we will have some form of an electronic device in the polling
that
location.
may have voice-activated
Correct.
cues
Yes.
and things.
Yes.
Okay.
Some sort of electronic.
Because part of HAVA is to provide people with various disabilities the opportunity to vote as normally as possible.
Correct.
Okay. Dan, you already have optical scan, but if I'm correct, it's not the optical scan system that you got. I don't know if the equipment changes or just the way you handle it is going to change ultimately by next year. Am I right on that?
That's correct. It's a total changeover. It's the state-of-the-art, newest generation of optical scan. In our current environment, we have a centralized high-speed optical scan where the ballots are brought down to the Board of Elections on election night from the 70 polling locations and 191 precincts, and then we scan them. In the new system, when we convert, it'll be a precinct level scanner. So when Dan Hurley votes, you will literally you'll go through the same identical process as you always have within Claremont County, up to the point where you walk over and you'll actually fill in the ovals, like the old SAT test. But instead of going back and giving the ballot to the ballot judge, you will be instructed to go to the precinct scanner. There'll be a precinct scanner at each precinct. You will simply walk over and feed it in. It's very straightforward, very simplistic.
So the voter themselves will feed it in.
Correct. And the system, the precinct scanner, will also be able to track overvotes and undervotes. And it'll give you, the voter, which is in essence the reason for the federal bill, it's called second chance voting. It will ensure you will be absolutely certain what you've done on that ballot. And if you're satisfied, you hit enter or yes, whatever the button is. If you're not, for any reason, you just hit reject, it comes back to you.
So this whole overvoting thing, which was a big problem in Florida particularly, that's where people had these dimpled chads, plus they seemed to, whatever, maybe voting for both candidates, or in a field race like Cincinnati City Council, which is coming up this November in Hamilton County, where there's not, you can vote for 9 out of whatever, 20 or whatever it's going to be. If you happen to vote for 10, you lose track. That's an overvote, and your votes are lost there. This prevents that. You will know instantly if you've messed up.
It will alert you. You can still allow it if
you can still
wish.
allow it?
Yes, depending on how you want to program it. But the bottom line is, of course, we want to alert each voter. Believe it or not, some people intentionally do things at the polls. Some folks will leave a ballot totally blank. Okay. For whatever reason. Some people overvote, and they're adamant that they knowingly vote for more than one candidate in a field where you should only be voting for one candidate.
In effect, they're canceling their own vote
That's
out.
Right.
Okay.
But the system will alert that voter, and
then the other side of that is that individual ballot result is quickly tabulated, and then by the end of the day, do you already have the results pretty quickly? The polls close at 7:30 or whatever it happens to be, and then do you really have your count already?
We really will. It'll be basically each precinct scanner will have a disk that'll be transported along with the ballots. We're back to the paper ballots.
You can go back and check
Absolutely. Absolute total control, management control of all the ballots, which I think is crucial. The diskettes then will be simply inserted into the system at the Board of Elections. It's literally a couple of seconds per diskette. By then, earlier in the evening, we will have already counted the absentee ballots. So I can anticipate, on average, having the unofficial results on election night within an hour, not more than an hour and a half tops. I would say an hour, and that gives plenty of time for the presiding judges to transport the materials from the outlying areas.
You know that TV is going to love you.
Well,
John, is the system that we may go to in Hamilton County, is it essentially the same thing?
It is essentially the same thing. The law mandates second chance voting. In a paper system, it's going to be a precinct-based counting system. And as they say, the biggest delay when we are getting results will typically be the amount of time it takes the Board of Elections employees to get to the board with the actual memory cards and the ballots themselves.
You know, when you were on here a couple of months ago and we were talking about this, one of the concerns you raised, we were just talking about all kinds of systems and pros and cons. One of the concerns you raised about the optical scan system was the cost of the ballot itself. You know, the actual paper ballot, what it costs to print, what it costs to set up. What's your expectation in your system about that you're looking at, what it's going to cost, and how does it compare to punch card?
Well, the good old punch card's been around for 30 years in Hamilton County. We buy those probably somewhere less than ½ cent a piece. We have been getting quotes on optical scan ballots from some companies for 29 cents or so a piece. Obviously, you have 573,000 voters in Hamilton County. It's quite an expense, and it's an ongoing expense. So one of the concerns we have here is driving that cost down as low as possible. We don't believe we're going to get back to the good old punch card days of fractional cents a ballot, but if we can get something lower, we'd be satisfied. So, 15 cents a piece or something would be very attractive.
You looking at the same issue?
Same identical situation. Of course, we've had that cost now.
And what is your cost? You've got some
We're into over 30 cents.
over 30 cents.
Yes.
But what are some of the, HAVA is going to be coming in, as I understand it, first time there's a federal election in 2006, the new voting systems must be there. So if we had a special election in a congressional district, and it had to happen in February 2006, you guys have to be ready to go. Am I right?
That's
Correct.
correct.
Okay, it's not just November.
Actually, Dan, it's not even February. The law says it's the first federal election after January 1 of 06, which means it's January 2nd of 06.
Okay.
And so we have to be prepared, both the Claremont County Board of Election as is every other board in Ohio has to be prepared on January 2nd of 06 to go forward with new technology that's HAVA compliant.
Besides the new with the new technology, some of your poll workers have been working for you guys
Yeah.
for a long time. They're very experienced, they're very good, they know how to work the traditional system. I know that is a problem, finding inside poll workers. Is this a big worry of yours? Just any new system is going to, you're going to have to do a new training, you're going to have to recruit. Is this going to pose a problem for you?
Well, in Claremont County, poll workers, first of all, you're correct. Many of our poll workers have been on board for 20 years or more, and they're the lifeblood, and we thank them every time we see them. In Claremont County, since we already have optical scan,
You're not too worried.
not as worried, even though it is a precinct scan, but it's so simplistic, and we've ran 2 test elections and live elections, by the way, and it worked smoothly. Once the poll workers are exposed to these precinct scanners, the anxiety seems to dissipate. But yes, it's going to be additional training, and it's going to take a huge effort.
John, what do you think? On that side, the people side.
I think there's always a concern, especially with the older worker who is has been used to in Hamilton County punch cards for the last 30 years. I certainly would agree with Dan that a optical scan paper marking an oval or a block or checking something is a much more simplistic process perhaps than the DRE with the training of the poll workers.
With the
Absolutely.
on-screen.
Well, and it's just not that. It's they have to do certain things on it to get it to come up in the morning. The screens to come up. They have to do things to shut it down, to get certain zero tapes at the beginning of the day, ending count tapes at the end of the night, and that is a concern.
You're in Claremont County, is a outlying boom county. You're experiencing growth, especially in certain parts. All of a sudden, a couple of new subdivisions go in,
Yes.
and that can really change the way a precinct works. Not in your county, but up in Warren County in November last year, I went up, and people were waiting over 3 hours to vote because the number of people in that precinct had just exploded. Is this a problem you're facing? Are you going to be needing more precincts, therefore more workers, therefore more, all of those things? Cost, all of that?
I'm glad you asked that question, and we did have a few precincts in November that we were not happy with, and it wasn't the poll workers' fault, and we apologized to the voters. It was 70% turnout. Some of our precincts,
Which we all love.
Which we all love. That's the good news. The bad news is the law does allow up to 1,400 registered voters in any given precinct in the state of Ohio. Some of ours were very, very close to that or at that, which we were still legally in compliance. And in fact, each county has been asked by the Office of the Secretary of State to consolidate some of our precincts for the sake of economies of scale. But Claremont County, I can tell you, we're going to go the other way. We're going to split some precincts, because at the end of the day, it's all about voter turnout. It's all about participation. And we have 9 precincts that we'll be splitting this November. We'll take 1,500 voters down to 750 or less. which is going to have a huge impact, even on routine elections.
John, what's your ideal number in order to facilitate people voting and yet be efficient and all of those sorts of things?
Well, in Hamilton County on the punch card currently, in the last general election, we are one voting machine to 106 voters. And in a big urban county, that's an excellent ratio. We had one machine per 76 actual votes cast. That's outstanding, okay? By anybody's measure in the state of Ohio, that's an outstanding voter ratio. If we go to a paper-based system, it's really going to eliminate what we call voter ratios, because we will have, when we're taking our old punch card machines, we're going to turn them over and they have a flat base so we can actually sort of recycle and maybe get another 30 years out of those guys. So we're going to use those for the voting.
You mean the
privacy
booths themselves?
That's right, the privacy stations. The privacy station will allow the voter to go vote in private if that's what they need. However, if you came in and you wanted to vote and you're really in a hurry, once you sign in, you get your ballot, you could stand there with it on your knee or put it on the wall, vote your vote, feed it into
Because
the
it's
scanner.
penciled.
Absolutely.
I am unfortunately out of time. Thank you very much. We'll anxiously await your announcement, and we look forward to 2006 because there's nothing like reporting on election night and nothing like problems. So
Very exciting.
thank you for
Thank
being
you.
here. Stay tuned. After the break, a look at a new museum that just opened in Germany but focuses on a topic Cincinnatians love to talk about. Welcome back. The popular wisdom in Cincinnati is that this is a German city. That's wrong, and not just because my last name's Hurley. But the impact of immigration on Cincinnati and America has long fascinated scholars and the public. But what does immigration look like from the other side? Tomorrow, a new emigration museum will be dedicated in Bremerhaven, Germany, to explore the experience of the nearly 7 million immigrants who left Central and Eastern Europe through that port for the New World between 1830 and 1974. One of the consultants to that new museum has been a leading expert in the area of Cincinnati German immigration experience and has been collecting those materials that relate to that story for, I don't know how many years, his whole life. So I'm joined this morning by Don Heinrich Tolzmann, who heads the University of Cincinnati's German Americana collection, which marked its 30th anniversary last year. Don, welcome to Newsmakers.
Guten Morgen. Guten Morgen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Now, see, my Irish mouth can hardly form it. The whole what is Cincinnati ethnically, we can have another discussion about. But this really is interesting to me because Americans, we are a nation of immigrants, and we talk about that all the time. But here, this is standing on the other side looking at that same process. What are the questions the people who are behind this, what are they interested in? What are they asking?
Well, you're right. We are a nation of immigrants. Everybody is an immigrant or a descendant of an immigrant. And people in Germany were very interested in learning what happened to these millions of immigrants who came to America and what happened to their descendants. What are they doing today? What do they know about the old country? What do they know about Germany? What do they know specifically about Bremerhaven, which was the last place that they saw in the old country? So we usually think in terms of the point of view from America, looking at where do the immigrants come from, the old country. With them, it's the reverse. They're looking at what happened to them in America. So the whole thing came about by people on both sides of the ocean coming together and saying there should be something in Germany to mark this in terms of a museum. And it's interesting. It came about really in the whole idea in the mid-1990s. And as you know, the Ellis Island Museum opened in 1990. Well, that kind of put a bug in everybody's ear that wouldn't it be appropriate to have something in Germany that would be the counterpoint or the other bookend to this?
You know, and if people have not visited Ellis Island, it is a wonderful, it's a humbling experience. I think the best combination to me is visiting Ellis Island, then going back to Manhattan and visiting the Lower East Side Tenement Museum, which is one of the great museums in the United States, and putting those two together. So we can tell that story, but now for people who travel to Europe, sort of seeing it from the other side. How did you get hooked up? Did you know the people, or did they find you, or how did this, that you got involved in this project?
Well, the reason they got to me, basically, being in Cincinnati, of course, one of the three major German heritage areas in the U.S., along with Milwaukee and St. Louis, they naturally came to Cincinnati. It just made sense. This is one of the three major destinations of German immigrants. So they got in touch with me in the 1990s. We started talking about this idea, and it then came to fruition. And I might say, too, that many of the people involved in the planning with the Ellis Island Museum were also involved with this project. And it's interesting to note, too, that many of the people who planned it, they came to Cincinnati. They came here and looked at the German immigration and heritage here. They came to our museum center. They were very interested in how is history presented here at our museum center, and of course in Milwaukee and St. Louis. So this is really working hand in glove very closely with people on both sides of the ocean.
And this means relationships get built, and this will be a continuing relationship, I'm sure. We're doing this on a Friday right before you leave, and this segment won't air until the day before the museum actually opens. So we don't have visuals of the museum itself, but I have some website things that people can take a look at. Tell me a little bit about the museum. What's going to be there for the visitor?
Well, first of all, the museum itself cost about $45 million, and it's built in somewhat of an abstract version to look like an ocean liner ship of the 19th century. So it actually has the appearance of looking like a ship. Now, when you go in there, it's a multi-level building, but it will take you through exhibits and interactive types of programs, why people would immigrate, why would they want to leave their country. Then you will actually go through other exhibits that will take you to the port city, what was the experience of boarding a ship, what were the ship passage features like, being between the decks or in steerage, the very uncomfortable types of conditions. A lot of people don't have any idea what it was like actually to be in an ocean liner.
Yeah, one of the things that I think was actually just on the screen, it looks to me like you're going to be able to be in one of those steerage type compartments and get the sense of being not only below decks but below water, and that wasn't comfortable at all.
No, as a matter of fact, and the average journey was 30 to 90 days. The conditions varied, as you know. Sometimes there were no windows. There was no lighting available until late in the 19th century. People had to use candles. There was often fire. I mean, it's a very interesting thing to look at, and I think this will really bring it up close. What was it like to be an immigrant? Why did people want to immigrate? And one thing I always talk about in my classes is that immigrants and their descendants, they usually talk about the old country. They don't talk about the ship voyage. It was a very difficult trip.
Better to just skip over that mentally.
And this will kind of explain how millions of people came to this country.
I want to be sure, though, that we have a chance. That's in Germany. Lots of people are never going to have a chance to see that. It's good to know it's happening. But right here at the University of Cincinnati, your collection, we have only about a minute left here. Tell us a little bit about your collection and what you focus on about this story on this side and its availability to people.
At the University of Cincinnati, we have the German Americana collection, which is the largest collection in the world of materials relating to German immigration, history, and culture, especially on the Ohio Valley, and in particular, of course, on the greater Cincinnati area. And we have had a steady stream of students and scholars, not only from the U.S., but from Germany, that come here constantly to find out and learn more about it. And that's part of the thing that played into how I got involved, is that there's a steady stream of people interested in this.
The point is, if your family, if somebody watching this, their family is of German descent, and they have materials, you might be interested, and if they're interested in exploring it for themselves, you're available. Your collection is available. Don, congratulations on this. Have fun in Germany, and you know, come back with some stories and let people know. If you want to know more about this new museum, here is the website, DAH-Bremerhaven or Hafen.de/English/HAUPTSEITE. It's a little bit different, but if you go out there on the web and Google, you'll be able to find it too. Don, thank you very much for being here.
Thanks very much.
Thank you for making Local 12 Newsmakers a part of your Sunday morning. Next week, join us again to meet the men and the women who shape our community for the future. Have a good week.